Vastrum ubique silentium, deserti colles, fumantia procoltecta, nemo exploratoribus obvius.
Our advance guards were met with a widespread and desolate silence. The hills were deserted, and though smoke rose from distant houses, not a soul came forth to meet us.
So spoke the Romans, who marched their long straight roads through England to the Cheviots. They built a wall. It stands there to this day, a confession that here was one land, at least, they were not to conquer. Mountains, lochs, moors, and marshes. Cold, cloudy, heavy with rain. It offered to its inhabitants only a meagre living from the faces of the braes, the roots of the hills, and the rough stony wastes, coarse pasture for sheep, shallow soil for crops, heather for their roofs, and peat for their fuel. The land bred a stern and hardy race, toughened by the struggle for existence on its ungrateful soil. It was wrecked with wars. Across its landscapes rose many castles and keeps, guarding the bridges and the passes, protecting the precious crops the enemy came to destroy. Edinburgh, Stirling, Linlithgow, Dumbarton Rock, the border keeps, they stand there still today.
Ruins which changed hands 100 times as victory chanced to the English bow or the Scottish spear, and which yet bear manifestations of having been places of strength and terror.
As time passed, the people of this land made for themselves a simple but individual civilization. Their communities were very small, for they were limited by the fertility of the land. The binding factor in these communities was the family. So in crofts, farmsteads, and townships, they made their own customs and traditions and their own culture. From these people came Robert Burns, and it was their life that he celebrated.
To make a happy fireside climb to wains and wife, that's the true pathos and sublime of human life.
Their forthright nature demanded a religion which allowed for a personal relationship between God and man, a religion whose worship and code of duty fitted the hard realities of their daily life. In this, their leader and prophet was John Knox.
The doctrine of God's eternal predestination is so necessary to the Church of God that without the same can faith never be truly taught, neither surely established.
In the 18th and 19th centuries, This Calvinist creed became famous for its strictness. The elders of the kirk could summon and punish all those who defiled the Sabbath with worldly activities. It was sinful to feed the cattle, to draw or carry water. Fishermen might not touch their nets nor their boats before midnight on the Sabbath. Children were not to play, not even fires were to be lit. To attend the kirk was compulsory.
God shall not pity them, but laugh at their calamity. The righteous company in heaven shall rejoice in the execution of God's judgment, and shall sing while the smoke rises up forever.
But from this religion, which made the Scots Sabbath famous the world over, came, too, the grace and simplicity of the metrical psalms, which you may hear sung in many a Scots kirk today. Perhaps Scotland's most important debt to the Church is her educational system. John Knox's Book of Discipline, codified in 1560, and the constant energy and initiative of the Kirk Sessions, instituted a nationwide system of parish and grammar schools.
The school shall be open from the time scholars can see to read in the morning till 12 o'clock noon, and from 1 o'clock till the light fail at night.
These schools gave equal instruction to the children of the rich and poor alike. From the smallest and the most obscure villages came the constant stream of young men to the great Scots universities, St Andrews, Glasgow, Aberdeen, Edinburgh. The tradition here, like that of the crofts from which they came, was one of hard and ceaseless toil. Many starved their bodies to feed their minds. They studied through long winter nights in fireless, unfurnished, dimly lit garrets. The qualifications for success were not money and means, but brains and industry. Thus Scotland bred great philosophers like Reid and Hume, poets like Dunbar, writers like Scott and Stevenson, Lister, who established the principles of antisepsis, and a legion of others.
At the end of the 18th century, James Watt of Greenock perfected the rotary steam engine, and so released the mineral wealth of the central area of Scotland. The Clyde was dredged and widened. Clydebank became the world's shipyard. One ship out of every 5 that sails the seas is built on the Clyde. Round the Clyde thundered the new industries: heavy engineering, steelworks, forges, foundries, machine shops. From Forth to Clyde, the face of the country was utterly changed. The new industries sucked in manpower from every part of Scotland. 4/5 of the population was concentrated in this narrow area. But these people, crowded together in the smoke and sound of the drumming factories, were of the same stock as the crofters, the shepherds, and the fishermen. Behind every Glasgow family, they say, you will find a croft, a farm, or a fishing village.
I think we'll do the same this year again. Oh, they did pretty well, these 5. I was pleased to see them winning the cup.
It's the first time a second division team's won the cup.
They might go a lot further than that. They're not like a lot of the wee teams that bust up the cuttings. They're consistent.
The Scottish industrial workers still had the best qualities of the peasant, the same hardihood, the same ability. They were inventive. They made new things. They improved on them. In engineering shop and shipyard, they bred great craftsmen.
In the Great War, many of the soldiers who marched away behind the pipes and the drums were the engineers, the riveters, the puddlers, the miners. They carried with them to Festubert, to Beaumont Hamel, and to the Somme, the fighting traditions of Bruce and Wallace, of Outram and Gordon. The shrine on the Castle Rock at Edinburgh rises as an abiding memorial to the men who fell in the war and to the multitudes of Scottish soldiers in past times. The adventurers who fought with Gustavus Adolphus or became admirals and generals in the service of the Tsars. The dead of Bannockburn and Culloden, of Lucknow and the Heights of Abraham. Whatever the future holds, Scotland may face it boldly, for her greatest asset is to be reckoned not in terms of money in banks or capital investments in plant or machinery, but in the character of her people. So today, in the roar of a Glasgow football crowd, you may well observe the vigour and the enthusiasm, the ambition and the unconquerable determination of the Scottish race. Today they are the same race of whom, nearly 500 years ago, the historian Holinshed spoke.
Thereunto we find them to be courageous and hardy, offering themselves often unto the uttermost perils with great assurance, so that a man may pronounce nothing to be over hard, or past their power to perform.